us at the New Jersey, thank you, Business and Industry Association's Business Growth Roundtable. We at NJBIA are thrilled to have helped in the creation of this amazing group led by such amazing women. For those of you who are new to NJBIA, we are the largest statewide business association in the nation, representing about 1/4 of all New Jersey employees. And we offer customer development opportunities, visibility through events, magazine ads, or our podcast and TV shows, and money-saving discounts on stuff you're probably already paying for, like payroll, healthcare, a 401k solution, and 24/7 HR support. I am Kate Conroy, and if you're interested in more info on us, I'll drop the website into the chat along with my contact info. Please feel free to be in touch and we can get you whatever you need. And with that, I will now turn it over to the marvelous Lorena Mosqueda.
So kind the way they call me marvelous. Welcome everyone to today's roundtable discussion. I am so excited to be here. My name is Lorena Mosqueda and I am the workflow strategist with Paradigm Marketing and Design. Now, workflow strategist, I know it sounds like a weird title, but basically my love of data and my love of technology to combined is really what makes what I do so great. I really love working with clients with complex sales, get clarity on what is the next right thing to do with their business. And we use data to create that path. At Paradigm Marketing and Design, we are an award-winning strategic agency, and we specialize in working with businesses, again, with complex sales and making sales teams more effective and efficient. How do we do it? Through websites such as marketing tools, strive to create conversations and workflow to create efficiencies, really using all of those marketing gimmicks and the data all together. We want to thank all of our sponsors, Kim Luthi, Director of Wealth Planning at Synthesis Wealth. I've known Kim for years, and she is a true client advocate for her clients and their financial health. Sorry, too many things happening at the same time. Kim has helped many women and their families to prepare and successfully attain the life that they deserve. If you're not thinking about this today, make sure you talk to Kim because it is very crucial that you plan ahead and you want to be where you want to be, not just because of how you fall into it. She can help you create the right plan. Laura Osborne from Crothers Consulting is also one of our sponsors. Now, Laura is a consultant, coach, co-author, speaker, and human resource expert. I don't know how she doesn't have time to actually sleep with all that she does, but drawing on her 30 years experience in HR, she has successfully guided business leaders and HR executives, providing a very clear vision as to what they face and all the many challenges associated with growing their company or engaging in mergers and acquisitions. And of course, we have Cal Thomas from Sandler. And I can't say enough about Sandler. My team and I are all Sandler trained. It's actually one of our requirements when they get promoted. They have to go through Sandler training. It has taken our close rate from a 40% average to about 70%. And it's truly an investment that you make in yourself and in your business and in your success. So if you have not reached out to Cal on Sandler training, it's absolutely something you have to add to your to-do list. Of course, I want to mention some of the events that we've got coming up. The Business Growth Roundtable continues on next month, where Laura will be presenting on how to build a self-scaling company. And I believe it is part 2 of the Developing Rising Leaders series. So we'll put that in the link as well in the comments. And now I'm going to pass it back on over to Donna.
Well, thank you, ladies. So I'm delighted to be here. I'm Donna Miller, one of the co-hosts of this show, and I, for the last 30 years, almost 30 years, it's mind-blowing that much time has gone by. But so I am founder and chief visionary officer at C3 Workplace and Donna Miller Business Growth Consulting, and we have been helping companies to start and grow for a very long time, and we do that by providing support and advisory services around operations, business development, and your finances. We allow growing teams to focus on that which actually drives their business forward instead of some of the minutia and dysfunctional systems that aren't serving them. Our goal is to help you work smarter, not harder. And we help companies to, in my consulting practice, help business owners to build companies that run without them involved in the day-to-day. So I'm super excited about next month's topic because a couple of months ago, we talked about how to scale your business, really engaged, really lively conversation. So this is really part 2. And Laura and I have talked about this a bit, but as I've grown my company to run without me and as I've scaled, one of the challenges I've seen is how do we raise up that next level of leaders? So I'm super excited about next month's conversation. And Laura's going to lead a really interesting fireside chat with a couple of amazing people who are going to share their experience around that. So before we get into the presentation, a couple things. First of all, I want to give us a huge round of applause because this is our 2-year anniversary. Holy moly. God bless Rachel, who is on a cruise ship. God bless Rachel, because that's why you collaborate, because you can get way more done. So you see that? Rachel is driving leads while she's on a cruise ship. That's what I'm talking about, self-scaling, right? So we're celebrating 2 years. We've had some amazing guests on the show, and today's guest is a repeat performer. So we are recording this event for those who could not attend or may have to leave early, but we are recording this event. I want to encourage you to use the chat window to introduce yourself. This is called virtual networking. You are on a call with, I think we have almost 200 people registered. You are on a call with people who share your value of continuous learning. These are people you want to connect with. So do that in the chat window. Because of the size of our crowd, we will allow time for Q&A at the end. But I'm going to ask you, please don't put your questions in the chat. It's going to get too wanky. So please put your questions in the Q&A segment of this Zoom meeting, and we will get to your questions at the end. Now, I mentioned this segment is with my buddy, Dan Gingiss. Someday, if you really want to know how we get these speakers, you gotta call me. I'll tell you all about my LinkedIn strategy. I throw Hail Marys and sometimes they land. Anyway, Dan is amazing. His book, The Experience Maker, is called How to Create Remarkable Experiences That Your Customers Can't Wait to Share. And in a minute, I'm going to share with you also his companion workbook. So Dan believes, and he will tell you this, Dan believes that our best marketing strategy is creating that exceptional customer experience. And the reason he's back is because this conversation today is about how to create a culture of getting everyone selling. Okay, for those of you who are the primary rainmaker at your company, just take a minute and soak that puppy in. What if you got everybody in your organization generating leads? How would that change your life? How would that change your company? And hello, how would that make the people who work for you feel? They're going to really feel like they're contributing. So because of Dan's travel schedule, because of Rachel's travel schedule, we pre-recorded this segment. So here's how this is going to go. We're going to step off the stage, and then we're going to bring the recording up. We're going to engage with you during the recording. And then after the recording, we will go to Q&A. So give me a second. Hopefully I won't mess this up. Lorena, you make me nervous. Lorena's like Queen Technology. I'm like, oh my goodness. All right. So
listen, the chat is working, and that's usually our thing. So we're good right now. This is great.
I know. I still haven't figured out how to completely fix that, but nevertheless, I am going to share this. Okay, here we go. Okay, so you're all looking at this presentation to come, right? You're seeing Rachel's face there? Lorena, yeah?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. All right. So enjoy this. I will be monitoring the chat window, and we'll see you in just a short time for Q&A.
Hello, everyone. So delighted that you could be here today. We are here with our friend Dan Gingiss, and of course, you know Rachel Durkan. So Dan is an international keynote speaker. He is a customer experience expert and coach, and he has worked with some amazing corporate names. We wrote him up in the event registration. I'm not going to get too far into that. The part that I like is he is a customer experience expert. He believes your customer experience is your best marketing strategy. I have to completely agree. We all know positive news. I don't know if we all know this, but positive news spreads a lot quicker than negative news. So if you can go out of your way for a customer, that's going to come back to you in spades. We'll talk more about this. But Dan, as a native Chicagoan, get that right? Chicagoan, is also a lifelong, of course, Chicago Cubs fan. He is a licensed bartender, and I always like to point out he is a pinball wizard. Come on, how great is that? Dan, next time you get to Jersey, we'll have to take you. There are a couple of pinball museums here.
Oh,
That's
I
pretty
would love to do
incredible.
that.
Yeah,
That'd be
yeah.
super
He can make
fun.
us drinks first and then afterwards.
Yes, pinball's always more fun when you have a drink in your hand. for sure.
Absolutely. And because it's a museum and you get a wristband, you don't have to worry about tilting the machine. You can see how far you can go with that, which is all part of the pinball strategy. Anyway, we are not here to talk about pinball. So, and those of you who have been joining us for a while know that Dan was here back in March of 2021. Rachel, this is our 2-year anniversary.
It makes
All
me feel
right.
I know. So when I decided that I really wanted to talk about creating a culture where everyone sells, I really wanted to get Dan involved in the conversation because I believe this does come down to 2 things. It is creating a culture in your company where everyone is informed, where there is cross collaboration, and then how does everyone in the organization create an extraordinary customer experience so that everyone is identifying opportunities for the company. So here we are, and this is what we're going to talk about. So here's how it's going to go. We're going to talk about today's landscape. We're going to talk about culture. We're going to talk about customer experience. And then probably most importantly, we're going to talk about how to put it into action, because those of you who know me know, I do not believe that knowledge is power. I believe applied knowledge is power. So here's how I see today's landscape. And one of the reasons I think this is so important. It is an incredibly noisy. I don't think we've ever had more content. Our brain can't possibly process everything that's coming at us. As the company who's out there, trying to get my message across, I have to figure out ways to stand out. It's noisy, it's crowded. That's the marketplace. And now we've got this workforce that post-COVID is mostly remote, which, work from home is turning into back to the office or whatever you want to call it, because it's really difficult to be working in isolation. We're just not meant to do it. So this landscape that we're in today is really counter to building culture and creating customer experience. So that makes it even more important. That's kind of how I'm seeing it. Dan, what are you seeing? You're out there in the corporate world, you're working with clients. What are you seeing kind of where today is post-COVID?
Well, the interesting thing about the pandemic is it actually shined a much brighter light on both customer experience and employee experience. And the light was already there, but I think it's now even more important coming out of the pandemic. What we learned during the pandemic was which companies were there for us as consumers and as employees, and which ones weren't. And we made a lot of decisions, consumers made and employees made a lot of decisions based on that. And that's why you saw the so much brand switching from a consumer perspective, and you saw the quiet quitting phenomenon and the actual quitting phenomenon from an employee standpoint. So now that we are here, it's important for us to realize that customer experience and employee experience are inextricably linked. Now, a lot of people will say happy employees equal happy customers, which I think is a good math equation, but I go to a different math symbol. Don't worry, it's not much harder. I go to the infinity symbol because I think that employee experience and customer experience are continuously moving and they are continuously feeding each other. So as we have happier customers, it makes our employees' jobs easier because it's always nicer and fun to handle a happy customer than an angry customer. And so now our employees like their jobs better. And when they like their jobs better, what do? They provide a better experience for customers. And so now our customers are seeing that they have a better experience with us, which makes them even happier, and on we go. Absolutely. A different way to look at it is to say that we can't ask employees to create great experiences for customers if they don't know what a great experience looks like. And so as employers, it's really our job to show them, here's what a great experience looks like. See how that feels? You like that feeling? Good. Help us make that feeling for our customers.
Right. Absolutely. And we'll talk about ways to empower our team. So Rachel, from where you sit, the sales and marketing, how's all this kind of affecting what's going on in your world?
So I wanted to add on to one thing that Dan just said is happy employees equals happy customers. But I also find that training your employees is also incredibly important to that. So putting people out just because they're happy doesn't mean that they're able to provide the right experience or say the right thing. So one of the things that I think is the most important is this concept of alignment. in your messaging. So we do a lot of exercises with our clients and with ourselves where we'll go out and we'll say, okay, if you're sitting at the dinner table or Thanksgiving and your uncle asks you what you do and what company you work for, can you articulate the value proposition of that company in the exact same way as somebody else on the team might? So is my developer going to say the same thing as my workflow strategist, who's going to say the same thing as my marketing strategist? And what we found, and what I always find if there's not training involved, is that everybody says something different because their perceptions of their jobs and what they do is different every day. So making sure Donna, you talk a lot about mission, vision, values, and those definitely have to be in alignment. But where I come from, it's about the messaging strategy, which is what I call value propositions. What is the value that the company brings to the customer? And is everybody drinking that Kool-Aid and actually understand it at the drop of a hat? So that level of training and alignment is so important. And it has to be an ongoing process.
You know, I agree. And I think that because I am the kind of person that I am, I see opportunity in every challenge.
Mm-hmm.
So when we have this challenge of the great resignation and quiet quitting and remote working and not having the touches, the literal touches that we used to have, you know, I see it as an opportunity. And I do think that's where mission, values, vision comes in. And, you know, I think the truth is it's really simple, but not necessarily easy.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, your mission, values, vision, very simply. And by the way, in the chat, drop me a 1 if you have a written mission, values, vision statement. Very simply, the way I see this, thank you, Dan, appreciate the backup.
Mm-hmm.
The way I see this, really simple. Mission, what do you do? Values, what do you stand for? Vision, where are you going?
Mm-hmm.
This is a very simple explanation of what a mission, values, vision is, but the reality is you have to document it. And it's kind of like Rachel was talking about with your selling proposition.
Mm-hmm.
It's an alignment tool. Once you get clear on what you do, what you stand for, and where you're going, every decision you make gets held to that criteria, to those values, to that mission. Whether you're hiring people, whether you're deciding what kind of marketing activities to do. And what I have found is, so C3 Workplace, my main company, connect, collaborate, community. We realized about 10 years in, that was our secret sauce. And what we've done is we've built an organization that attracts like valued people. We believe in the power of connection and we live it out loud. So it's not enough to just have your mission, values, vision statement. You have to live it out loud. And Dan is here about customer experience. And so Dan, I believe that living your mission, values, vision out loud is your customer experience. So talk to us about creating that amazing customer experience and your wiser strategy for how to do that.
Sure, and I completely agree with you. If your mission and your values don't have anything to do with the customer, then you're probably looking in the wrong direction, right?
Exactly.
And so certainly the customer, I'd love you to work the word customer into the mission, the vision, and the values in some way. Because as I like to remind people, without customers, we do not have a business.
Mm-hmm.
So it is our number one asset, right? And so we have to nurture that. So the wiser methodology is a way to think about creating the kinds of experiences that people want to share, that they want to talk about. Because as we said earlier, when people are talking about us in a positive way, that is news that spreads. All you got to do is look at your Instagram feed to see how much positivity people want to share. We want to share the best versions of ourselves. And so when something cool happens in our life, we want to share that. If you're not a social media person, we still want to share it with friends, family, co-workers. That is also very important sharing. It doesn't have to be that you have 1 million followers and that's what, you know, and that's the outcome. It could just be that you tell your neighbor you had a great experience at a certain grocery store, and now you've changed your neighbor's opinion of which grocery store they're going to go shop at. So the wiser methodology, the first part is being wise to customer experience. And these are 4 things that you can do to create experiences that people want to talk about. W is being witty. And witty is not about being hysterical or a stand-up comedian. It's just about being clever. It's about using every communication opportunity as a chance to have a little bit more fun, to be a little bit more creative, to be more human sounding than just business sounding. It's about using language to our advantage. And my favorite part is it's about refusing to be boring. There are so many people that come up to me and say, yeah, but I'm in a boring industry. I can't do this. Well, guess what? Let's make it unboring. It doesn't have to be boring. There's no law that says that it has to be boring. And I've seen tons of companies that are in otherwise boring industries have some really fun parts of the experience, and especially in the communications, that take people by surprise, and therefore they're memorable. Immersive is the I in WISE, and that's about appealing to people's emotions or to their five senses so that they really feel the experience. They're not just in it, but they're a part of it, and it becomes a part of them. So here you want to think about the whole journey of the customer and ensuring that it's consistent, that it looks like the same brand all along, that whether you're getting something from the marketing department or you're calling customer service, it feels like the same company, right? Where we've all had situations where, you see an ad and then you call customer service and the customer service has no idea that this ad even existed, right? That's, a weird problem to make the customer have to solve. So being immersive is really about finding those opportunities to appeal to either emotion or the five senses. Then we get to shareable, which is one of the outcomes, but shareable doesn't happen in a vacuum. It doesn't happen by accident. It also doesn't happen as much as you might think just because we ask for it. So my skin always crawls a little bit when I see, follow us on Instagram and use our hashtag and don't forget to tag us and take a picture of this selfie station. And it's like, there's way too many instructions. And what you realize is you're just asking the customer to do something for you, not for them.
Yeah.
The
Right.
opposite of that is that moment that we've all had, every one of us has had, where we pull this thing out because we just have to capture this moment. Nobody told us to do it, but we're like, OMG, I got to remember this. And maybe I just need to keep it in my photo reel to remember myself. But maybe I want to send it to my kids or my parents or my siblings. Maybe I want to share it with people at work. Maybe I have 1 million followers on Instagram and I want to put it on Instagram. Regardless, it's that moment that we've all had where we cannot help ourselves. We must take a picture of this. That's when you have a shareable experience. And sometimes companies are worried about this. Sometimes they go into it saying, we don't want people to take a picture of this. I want you to turn that around and say, how do we get people to take a picture of this? How do we get them to want to share this? And when you think about it in that opposite way, that's when the creativity starts flowing in terms of ways in which to get them interested. Finally, there's the E in WISE, which stands for extraordinary. Now, this is a fun one because most of your competitors, maybe all of your competitors, are likely ordinary, average, not a whole lot better than that. And the good news is customers don't share average experiences. They only share experiences that stand out to them, either positively or negatively. So being extraordinary just simply means, by definition, a little bit better than ordinary. You don't have to be miles above ordinary. You don't have to spend millions of dollars per customer to be extraordinary. You can just be a little bit different. And the best way to do this is to stop looking at your competitors for inspiration, because you're not going to find it there. And to start looking at other industries. Go to an amusement park, go to a movie theater, go to a swimming pool, go shopping, go to a restaurant, get on an airplane, go to a hotel. Any of those places are going to give you really good ideas that you can then come back and implement in a similar way in your business, versus what tends to be our main way of thinking, which is, well, let's just see what the other guys are doing. And that's not generally going to get you to as good of a place. Once you are WISE, you will start to see that people are talking about you more often. And that's when we bring in the R, which is being responsive. And that's so critical, because when people take time out of their day and use up their social capital to get onto social media or write a review and talk about you, you want to be part of that conversation. And even if it's as simple as saying, hey, we love you too, Donna, thanks so much for being a customer, that's going to make Donna's day, even though she's already happy because she's already posting something nice about you. But knowing that the company's listening and that they love her back and that they are responding means so much to people. And so we've got to be willing to have this two-way conversation with our customers. And I guess one other thing would be that responsive could also be just listening to customer service phone calls or survey responses or internal ways that customers are talking to us and making sure that we are talking back, that it is a two-way conversation.
Amazing. And truthfully, I often say this, it's never the one big thing you do, it's the 100 little things you do. And you talk about customer experience in kind of a consumer directed way. But the truth is a lot of our audience is business to business, but it's the exact same thing.
Yes, it
the
is.
exact same thing. Creating these nurturing touch points. Rachel, you talk about this all the time. It takes 7 to 11 touch points. Well, how can you make those touch points something out of the ordinary? That's extraordinary, right? So, I mean, and that's how we drive referrals. And we all know referrals are the lifeblood of all our businesses, and they have a much higher close ratio. So that's why I love this whole concept of creating extraordinary, wiser customer experience.
You
And
know,
again,
Donna, just to
yeah.
jump in for one quick second,
Sure.
for all the B2Bs out there, the people that are buying your product or service, they are consumers in their real lives. They might not be acting as a consumer with you, but last night they went to dinner with their significant other and had an amazing time, and the food was incredible and the experience was amazing and the atmosphere was great. And whether you think it's fair or not, the experience they're having with you right now is being compared to that. If you are a B2B, if you have an online aspect to your business, you are getting compared to Amazon. Sorry, you may not like that, but Amazon is the gold standard for how easy it is to do business with companies. And so you're getting compared to that. So stop looking at your customers as not being consumers, because they are. And so that's how you bridge this gap when you start to think, well, Dan's only talking about consumers. Yes, and
We are.
buyers are consumers.
Right.
I just want to echo that for a second. They've since moved on and we have somebody new in the role, but we had a creative director who was very, very talented. And they were all about like the design and the emotion that it provoked, but they didn't always want to do what the customer wanted. And the experience was good, but it wasn't great. The outcome was great. The experience was good. And what I came to realize was the outcome being great, I would have happily switched that and had a great experience with a good outcome. And I think that we would have had happier customers. I'm not saying that mediocrity is something that you should be shooting for here. But my point is that when I'm talking to my team on a regular basis, everybody on my team, I tell them that half of our job, when we're dealing in a B2B environment, is creating a good experience. The outcome is important, but the good experience along the way, if we didn't produce that, the outcome really in the end doesn't matter as much. So for any B2B environment, I would say that make sure your team knows that half of the rate of success, at least, is the experience of the customer and not what's being produced.
Right.
You know, Rachel, for my book, I interviewed an Iron Chef, Stephanie Izard. And she told me, I asked her about this very question. And I expected, since she's a chef, I expected a different answer. I said, you know, if you were looking at the relative importance of the quality of the meal and the quality of the experience, where would you, how would you apportion it? And I swear I expected her to say 80-20 food, 70-30 food. No. She said 50-50.
It is. It really is.
And so you're totally spot on. And I think in every business, that's true.
I agree. So coming back to the reason we're here, we're talking about building a culture where everyone sells. Now, that kind of may make the hairs on the back of your neck stand up, because some of you feel like you are not salespeople. But when you create a culture where you are empowering people to deliver exceptional customer service, where they understand your value proposition and where they understand what pain looks like, every single one of them has the opportunity to produce leads for your business, somebody else can close them. So to me, really, I just want to spend a few minutes. This starts with the mission, values, vision. Culture is the soil of your firm. So you have to create the mission, values, vision that empowers people to know that this is part of their job. This is part of how they contribute to the extraordinary experience that your company is delivering. And I always, when I work with a company on doing a mission, values, vision, it's always a full team exercise. We may have a leadership team that kind of dictates direction, but I like to start by getting everyone on the team to identify their top 3 values, because you have to know who you are to be able to fit into an organization. And then we look at the organization's values, we look at what they do, and then we look at where they're going. So if we get everyone involved in the process, that creates something that I think is pivotal to everything we're talking about, which is ownership. In order for every person on your team to identify an opportunity to create an extraordinary experience, they have to feel like they own it. They have to feel like they have skin in the game. That, to me, is probably the biggest reason for getting your mission, values, vision documented, and then creating a committee within your company. Could be you and your kids, who knows? That might be the committee. But the truth is, it's one thing to create it, but unless you live it out loud, unless you find 50 different ways to incorporate that into everything you're doing, there's just no point in the exercise. So for me, this mission, values, vision, I often say, people know this, I'm in business almost 30 years. For the first 10 years, I did a fantastically accelerated job of becoming the world's greatest micromanager. There was no situation I couldn't make worse. And that's the culture that I built. So of course, everyone was afraid to do anything. And then I underwent a process of bringing in outside help and really transforming the company into a place where, I have to say, I'm very proud of having a successful company, but I'm even more proud of the fact that everyone loves coming to work. They love what we do. And part of living out your mission, values, vision is creating the space for your team to collaborate. It could be on a particular initiative. It could be, hey, how did we live this value out loud this week? Hey, are we on mission? We closed a piece of business. Let's all celebrate. And I think that when you're able to create that environment, the upside potential is enormous. So the time invested is minimal compared to what you will get out of it. And, I talk a lot about collaboration, obviously. Rachel, you often talk about the culture of collaboration versus competition. Mm-hmm. I think there's a funny word that combines collaboration and competition, but I can't think of it at the moment. So talk to us about how we do this. You kind of talk about alignment and competition. Talk to us a little bit about how we do that from where you sit.
Sure. So let me just take a step back, and we're talking a lot about culture, and that is the formula to get this done, but I want to talk about the end result for a second. Last year, we put a major focus on creating a culture of selling where it wasn't just the sales team's responsibility, and our revenue grew 40%, most of that from upsell projects that came in. So this will increase your bottom line. And that's why this is so important. We're talking about something very soft here and an intangible. I mean, it's not an intangible, but to people who are just learning it might feel like an intangible, but it has a direct impact on the bottom line of your company. And those sales are easier to make, but it takes some work. So, and every company is different. So let me back up a second. My husband works for a very, very, very large company, and their culture in sales is about competition. Their sales managers are direct. Sometimes I hear, it's not, I wouldn't call it abusive, but sometimes I hear the way that the management talks to the team, and that just wouldn't work in my company. It works, it motivates them, they're doing really well, doesn't work in my organization. And when we decided we wanted to do this, I had to take a big step back and think to myself, okay, what is the environment I'm going to create to make this happen? Sometimes it's competition, sometimes it's collaboration. What I know is that people are motivated in one of 3 ways, and everybody's motivated by these 3 things, but each person puts one over the others. And that is responsibility, recognition, and reward. So responsibility is that you own something and you feel empowered. Recognition is that you're recognized, whether you're getting an award or a shout out or a spot bonus. And reward is about the money. And you have to integrate a culture that combines all of those things. So one of the challenges we had historically, we always had a sales team and we had an account team. And now the challenge was that the sales team would hand off a client, make lots of promises, and they had to trust the account team to deliver it. And so there was a feedback loop and we talked and the salesperson would check in, but they weren't in the front line day to day with our customers, right? And of course, our account team was motivated to create a good experience, but they weren't necessarily motivated to upsell. And then I found, when I used to be in sales and operations, and we have another team member who's in sales and operations, they have a much easier time increasing their numbers because they're in front of the client all the time. So the question became, how do I create a culture? How do I, without going under, because I have to still be profitable, how do I make the sales team feel okay that they're handing off this lead and they're getting their commission in the first place, but now the account team's going to do all the upselling and they're going to have to give away some of their commission to the account team. How do I make them feel good about that? But they're going to lose some money. And how do I make the account team feel empowered by the sales team and not feel like that they're pissed off at them now for taking some of their money? And, what we had to do was create a structure where everybody won. And of course, there was less commission to go around, but now there's more money to be made. So the commission overall number is higher. So some team members who are, reward focused, I had to pull aside and show them the formula of what this could look like in a year. For the other team members who are responsibility focused, I had to talk to them about how we were going to empower them to take bigger risks. And ultimately, it came down to training. After everybody bought in, and I talked to people individually, I talked to teams together, I talked to the company as a whole, but we had to understand what everybody was motivated by and then get buy-in on this new structure we were building, because some people lost money initially and some people were able to make more, but in the long run, we were all going to win. So we had to make sure that they understood the long game. And after we did that, the important thing was to make sure it came to fruition. So I was going to promise my salespeople, you're going to make a little bit less money now, but then eventually the account team's going to start selling more and you're going to make more without having to do any more work. But now I had to make sure the account team knew what they were doing. So this goes back to the training. If we're going to empower everyone, we've got to give them the proper training. My entire account team now goes through sales training, and we use it in our conversations as a team, as part of our culture. And it also gives an opportunity for even like our developers to understand the big picture of something. Should I be doing this? Is this the right move in the long game for our clients? Is this going to make them happy and create a good experience, even though it's going to solve my problem in the short term right now, but will it create a problem later? So it's about getting everybody to think at a higher critical level and understand how it all integrates, and making sure that as a manager and as a leader, you're identifying each person's motivation and making sure that the entire ecosystem and environment is working together to support those three things.
Beautiful. So true. And when you talk about training, I think, we have our audience has various sizes of companies,
Mm-hmm.
some are larger, some of them are smaller. And this might sound a little overwhelming to smaller companies, but the truth is the training, very simply, is communication and create SOPs. I mean, it's really not difficult. You can do it as you go. And, similarly at our organization, we provide operational and biz dev support, and we provide bookkeeping and financial support. And those are two very different skill sets. So I don't have any people who serve on both teams. However, we have someone above them all who account manages. And we also, in 2022, our focus was on cross-selling and upselling our clients. And our increased revenue, although it was not 40%, kudos to you, was all from upselling and cross-selling. Mm-hmm. And part of what I needed to do to make my people understand the value of that was to literally get on the whiteboard and show them some math. Mm-hmm. We can upsell these clients. Here's how it goes directly to the bottom line, and here's how that impacts your year-end bonus. So I think sometimes training is, to get everyone on the team selling, we have to have a common language. That's partly mission, values, vision. And it's also helping them to understand what's good for the business. We're the business owners, we're the leaders. They may not entirely understand that. And we recently had our biggest client come on board that was not sold by me. That was a cross-sell from a bookkeeping client to an admin client. And it's just phenomenal. So creating this culture where you empower your people to provide extraordinary customer experience. I mean, I know, Dan, I know you had given a sample last we spoke where in particular organization, if you can fix it for $100, you don't ask anyone. You just go ahead and fix it. So, empower your people in very specific ways. So time always goes so quickly when we're doing these things. So before we wrap up and go to our Q&A session, I'd like to hear from both of you. And Dan, I'm going to ask you first. Again, coming back to the fact that, the power is in the action. What is the one or two things you want our audience to take away from today and put into action? And then Rachel, I'll ask you the same thing.
Yeah, I always thought it was important to teach employees to know enough to be dangerous, is what I would say. So when I worked at Discover, for example, which is a huge company, and it's known for its credit cards, and that's where I was in the credit card business, but it also has home loans. There's a student loan business. There's a whole bank, a Discover Bank, that offers checking and savings accounts and all that. And the folks that I was leading on the credit card team, they didn't really need to know about all of those other things, but I wanted them to know enough to be dangerous. Because if they're at a cocktail party and they meet somebody and they say, hey, my kid's going to college in the fall, I've heard that Discover might have student loans. And then a Discover employee says, well, I don't know, I don't think we're making that sale, right? But if they say, we do have student loans. I don't know a whole lot about them, but I know who does, and I'd be happy to make a recommendation and a referral for you or introduce you to someone. That's all that has to happen. And now that person's like, wow, I'm so glad I met someone who worked at Discover. And they're going to get an intro, and it's a warm lead, and we have a much better chance of making the sale. But so often it's that first thing that happens. It's well, I don't know, that's not my department. I have no idea. Right? And that is never going to happen. Now, does that person need to be an expert in student loans? No, they just need to know enough to be able to sort of take the customer to the next spot along the journey. And I think if you look at it that way, it doesn't feel so overwhelming.
I agree.
It's just about, what do we have to know? And, another way to do this, I've seen this in large and small companies. In large companies, I would always sit down with my team when we did a quarterly earnings call, and we would listen to the call together, because that educated them on the whole business, not just the little piece they were. In a smaller company, I've seen the CEO do a coffee chat with people, a physical coffee chat, or maybe today you do a virtual one, but where it's basically a Q&A with the CEO. Come and ask any of your questions. They'd give a bit of an update of things that were going on, but it was really about allowing the employees to ask what they wanted and to learn what they wanted. What I like about this is it's different from a training, and I know training can happen in lots of different ways, but what gets me sort of nervous is when I'm like, oh God, I got to take 17 modules that are 3 hours each. And like, oh my God, nobody likes that kind of training.
That's what I'm saying. Training is often just communication.
So people learn in different ways. And I think that can be a really easy way to help people learn, is just give them access to be able to ask the questions they have.
I agree. And to the point of recognition, when that person comes back from the cocktail party and says, hey, I didn't know what to do with this, but this person is interested in student loans, we have to broadcast that. Say, Jane did this, and that's great, because we want everyone to know it's okay to be imperfect. You still did a great job. Rachel, how about you? What do you want our audience to do?
I think there's three things to think about. And some of this comes back to training, however you want to call it, communication, workshops, whatever you want it to be. First, and I mentioned this earlier when we started talking, is make sure everyone knows your value proposition. What do you do? Does my web team know what my design team is capable of? Does my design team know what my marketing team is capable of? My design team never has a reason to talk to our business automation team. They really don't. But they need to know what they do and vice versa. Number one, do they understand the value propositions of the company, and is it consistent? Number two, Dan uses the word customer service. I use the word sales. They mean the exact same thing, in my opinion, and making sure everyone on your team knows that they mean the exact same thing. If you have a good conversation early on, that leads to a much easier sale later. So knowing how that process works from start to finish, it starts with customer service, it ends with sales. And I think that salespeople cut that right down the middle. and you have two people who are thinking about it very different way and losing half the equation. So making sure we're connecting the dots and teaching the team about that. And then the third is review, 360 reviews. So on a regular basis, we do with our clients a voice of the customer interviews. And we do that because we want to understand that we're going to the market with the right positioning strategy. So it's a market research tool. But oh my goodness, the things we learn about the client and how their customers feel about them. Getting a third party to come in once a year or every 6 months even and say, what are they doing well? What are they not doing well? What should we know? That's huge. I mean, every time I could think about a huge detriment in my business in the last 15 years, it's when I wasn't paying close enough attention to an employee who didn't have the proper training and was creating a poor experience for a client. And I missed it. And it's easy to miss when you've got a lot of people working for you. So making sure you have some sort of system in place to not reprimand or spy, but to learn so you can empower. So whether that's 360 interviews or client surveys or having a salesperson to call to check in on an experience, which we do on a monthly basis, having that feedback loop in some way as a formal process in your organization is huge.
Agreed. I would say, to kind of recap what I already said, I think the first thing you need to do is if you don't have a mission, values, vision statement, you need to have one. You can do it on your own. You can bring someone in to facilitate. The second piece of that is having regular, Rachel calls them trainings. I say meetings. Make sure there's a constant conversation, regular meetings. And, Rachel also talked about making sure everyone knows your unique selling proposition. And I agree with that. In my industry, people are coming to me because they're overwhelmed. Something's not working. They don't know exactly what's wrong. So in my arena, I need to make sure my team knows what the pain looks like.
Yeah.
If they can identify the pain, we can create a solution. And I do find, because I'm no longer on the front lines, they have a more current view of what the pain really looks like and how it shows up today. So mission, values, vision, regular meetings and communication, and in my case, make sure they are familiar with what the pain looks like, because then we can create a solution. So time flies, and that is all the time we have for today, but we will now go to Q&A.
Okay.
That was fantastic.
Hello, everyone. I know, isn't Dan just amazing?
Yeah, he's one of my faves.
He really is. He really is.
And I hope that everyone took advantage of the offer of getting the free book. So if you didn't, please make sure you text WISER to 555-444.
Thank you for bringing that back up,
Yes.
Lorena. Much appreciated. So we've got a few minutes left here, and we're going to go through a little bit of Q&A. I want to ask you, we have one question, and we had a lot of questions at registration, but we want to get to live questions first. So if you have any questions, now would be the time to drop them into the chat window. So Kate, we've got one here in the Q&A. You want to take a crack at that, or you want me to take that one?
The my belief or the other one?
Okay, let's see. I see.
There's a few of them. There's actually, how would you get lower level workers like servers and hostesses to buy in? And that one's a tough one.
Okay.
Oh, I was not.
Can I go? Can I go? Can I go?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
You go.
Okay. So first of all, this is going to sound very cliche, but I'm going to say it anyway. Honest to goodness, buy Dan's book. It is so chock full of really simple examples of just this. So my answer for how would you get lower level workers like servers and hostesses to buy in? I think it comes back to what Rachel said and what I said. It's a matter of communication and training. Do they know that this is something that they should be doing? Do they know what it is they're looking for? Can we have a monthly contest for a $25 Amazon reward where everyone who produces something resembling a pain point or a lead gets invited into that contest? I have to say that as much as, and I agree with Rachel, most salespeople are very monetarily driven. but it's possible that your support servers are not quite so monetarily driven. So you have to find ways to appeal to what's important to them. So we have to know what's important to them. There's that 360, but very often it's not uncommon for those more entry-level positions to be slightly more introverted. And so how their motivation shows up is going to look differently.
Yep.
Maybe you have a parking spot, where someone gets recognized for the month. We use Teams to communicate. We have a full team. I have 20 people. We have a full team now. And we encourage, this sounds so elementary, but I think it's a really great starting point for a lot of people. We encourage people. It's like, okay, I'm going to say it and you're all going to laugh at me, but it's like a kindergarten thing. You want to catch somebody doing something good, and then you want to tell everybody that they did it.
Yep.
And
Like you were in kindergarten, right?
exactly. So we call it kudos. So, we encourage everyone to shout out and create a kudos for the next person. So I'm having a little trouble seeing questions, so you gals will have to help me with that.
I don't
So I
see.
hope that helped.
I think that's a great
I think
answer.
that's great. I think everything you just said is 100% right on. And the reason that I said that's a little bit of a tough one is because the toughest part is finding something that's non-monetary that actually gets their excitement going. Once you figure that out, actually easy.
We used to have this funny little statue in my office, and when we were all in person, we would pass it from person to person, and whoever had the statue, they got the recognition. And trust me, it was a funny looking thing. No money involved.
Yeah. And this isn't really so much as a question, but it was a comment that Marianne Chimento actually made. And it's, the belief that everyone is actually a customer, including our colleagues, because they may be purchasing from our services. They may also be, they don't necessarily have to carry one hat. So I thought that was a really interesting point as well. We don't have too many questions on the Q&A. Watching it, but you know what? They're coming in now, actually. Now gotten the juice that's flowing here. So high performance legacy leader just won't align. How do you reel them into the group?
Ooh.
Say that again.
High performing legacy leader just won't align to the new way of doing things. How do you reel them into the group? The status quo. We've been doing this for so long. Why do I have to change? At least I hear this all the time. And I know that on my side, when we're switching and when we're changing the philosophy of how we're doing things, it's really about getting them to hopefully see the why. At least that's been my experience.
I would agree.
Well,
go ahead.
This is a multi-layered kind of conversation or situation, but I think that, part of what you need to do here is, was that person part of the conversation that led to the new messaging?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why I said, when I do a mission, values, vision with an organization, okay, I'm going to tell you all a really big secret. You ready? Don't tell anyone. But when I do it's for the 100 of you that are here. When I get consensus on mission, values, vision, it's because I got the leadership team to give me options that they are comfortable with, all of them.
Yeah.
And then the employees pick the ones they like. So you can narrow, the focus on that consensus. So legacy leaders are hard. They are stuck in their ways. And so just like we have to figure out what motivates the introvert, we have to think about what motivates that legacy leader. And if they are a legacy leader,
why, that hopefully makes it a lot easier from the beginning.
Exactly. I completely agree.
Yep. 100% agree.
We also
okay, go ahead.
I think we have time for one more, if that's okay. I'm looking at here, reminding everyone that hospitality is everyone's first point of contact. But I think that's like basics 101, which sometimes it's so basic that we forget to mention it. That smile. I remember back 20 plus years ago, God, I'm that old, when we started doing training, right? It was, you smile when you answer the phone. Like it's something so basic, but answering the phone with a smile, just a small little tiny thing, and reminding your team to do that when they are being the face of the business all the time makes a huge difference.
Absolutely correct.
Yeah,
I agree.
And I think all the questions that we had on the chat.
Okay. So, yeah, Kate, we
I
have
think-
some from registration.
Yeah, I think we have one for registration. And Donna, this one is for you. Back to leadership. Senior leadership has a history of culture and memories. How do we carry new experiences to the next generation? This is such a great
I
question.
love this question. And whoever asked this question needs to join us next month when we talk about scaling a business and how to raise up leaders.
Yes.
So I have a succession plan. I am on my way out of C3. That will become a very public thing next year. And I have created the next level of leadership. And I, up until this point, have been the face of the company. So in order for me or you to hand down that face of the company, the thought leadership, again, you have to get the next level involved. So may I just point out that it's Lorena who's here and not Rachel, because Rachel is raising up her next leader. So the first thing I think you do in order to share that legacy and to make that legacy last multiple generations is, for lack of a better phrase, whatever your stage is, you have to share your stage. So I'm going to be writing a book. I'm co-writing it with someone who's taking over. So I think the truth is that you have to talk about that culture and those memories, and you have to make that culture and those memories part of the ongoing dialogue. And presumably, we've talked about this, that's probably part of your why. And because your mission, values, vision is largely based on your values, presumably you're attracting talent in the company who, thank you, Simon Sinek, believe what you believe. And so I believe that is how you create continuity among both generations and layers of leadership.
And
100%.
we
Boom.
all want to be able to have that time off and have that opportunity to phase out of whatever role we're playing right now. And Rachel would not be able to go and say, hey, text me only good news and don't reach out unless it's an urgency, and completely be disconnected. Right. And you do that all the time, Donna.
I do. But I stole it from Tim Ferriss, who I often say is batshit brilliant. And if you haven't read 4 Hour Work Week, it's batshit brilliant. Read it. But when I first started this process of developing the next level of leaders, I was, as he says, working on my MBA, which is not my MBA. It's my management by absence. Sometimes we as the leaders have to leave the room because I don't mean to do it, but sometimes I suck the air out of a room. So I have to leave. And that's part of passing on the legacy as well.
Totally.
Well said.
Okay. So, all right, we have time for one more. So Kate, this is a question from pre-registered, but this is one for you. As a small business owner, and you represent, oh my gosh, 14,000 companies and a quarter of the employment in the state.
Yep.
As a small business owner, which we know there are lots of, and the only employee, what's the best way to start building the business so I can have a team? And this is great. This is not particularly directly related to this topic, but this topic is the foundation for that. So,
Yeah.
Kate, how would you help this person?
I would say, depending on how from scratch you're building, you have to make your sole focus, your full-time job, business development. And I know that you're the owner as well. You've got to pay the bills. You've got to do all the admin stuff too. But unless you've got a customer base that's consistently buying from you, you don't really have a business. So I would say make your full-time job 90% of the work that you do in that business development. And if that means going to a morning networking event, a prospect lunch, an afternoon coffee, and then a business dinner 5 days a week, that's what you do. Yeah. Hustle.
You got to work it, and you got to work it smart, right? Because here's going to be my analytical technology data brain, right? You have to make sure that whatever it is that you're doing with purpose, and you don't want to be just going to any single type of event and not getting any ROI.
Right.
So
always track it.
Always
Yes.
track it. And you don't have to have technology and a huge tech stack.
No.
Have a spreadsheet, beautiful Excel, just to help you track
Yep.
where these leads are coming from, and so that you don't forget to follow up with those names, because
100%.
that is
part
the
of
work
the-
for you to do. So,
No, it's a whole
100%.
other, discussion about
That's a
networking
different-
without, if you're not going to follow up, don't go to the networking event. But the other
Right.
thing I would,
Oh,
oh,
we
she
lose-
froze up.
Donna, you're frozen.
She's frozen, but that's okay. We are
We're
coming
at time.
1 o'clock anyway. So we are so thankful that all of you are here. Again, the link for next month's event was on the chat. If you need to register, please make sure you check out NJBIA's website, or Paradigm Marketing and Design, or Donna Miller's C3 Workplace. All of us have the links for the registration right on our websites. We look forward to seeing you next month, and we are so thrilled to continue this going on for the next. Oh my God, this is our second year. So this is amazing that we're still going strong. Thank you
love
all
it.
so much for joining us.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care.